we'll start with this. Boxing really is the theater of the unexpected. And we were reminded of this earlier today when Triller, the platform that staged the Mike Tyson versus Jones Jr. exhibition match, put in the winning bid for the Teofimo Lopez versus George Kambosos Jr. mandated IBF title fight. Triller's Ryan Kavanaugh bid $6,018,000, outbidding Matchroom and Top Rank to win the rights for Lopez versus Kambosos Jr.
They've effectively won the rights for the fight.
And Teofimo Lopez Jr. has effectively managed to get more money thrown into the pot for what would otherwise be a fight that would have flown largely under the radar. Understand that there was actually more anticipation for the fight's purse bid than the fight itself. This sparked the curiosity of many a boxing fan as far as where is this fight going to end up, because it's clear that Teofimo Lopez is not happy with the job that the people over there at Top Rank are doing. He's not happy with the money.
In that way, he succeeded.
In that way, it has proved to be a very shrewd business move and a lucrative endeavor for Team Lopez. But the other side of the coin,
what needs to be addressed now,
is that now Lopez versus Kambosos Jr. will likely be staged as a pay-per-view, as that is the kind of platform that Triller is. It's a pay-per-view platform.
You're gonna have to pay to see this thing.
The price point for the Mike Tyson versus Jones Jr. exhibition match that was staged on Triller was staged at a price point of about $50. $50 to see it.
Okay.
That same platform, that same Triller, just poured $6 million of their own money into the pot for the Kambosos Jr. versus Teofimo Lopez fight. That essentially means that in order to get that $6 million back, this proposed pay-per-view would have to sell a minimum of 120,000 pay-per-view buys. That's assuming that the price point for the pay-per-view, if it is staged as such, that's assuming that the price point for the pay-per-view is in fact $50, the same way that the Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. exhibition match was staged at a price point of $50. If it's going to cost the consumer $50 to see this thing, with Triller having poured $6 million into the pot,
they'll need 120,000 pay-per-view buys to break even.
And that's before they even start making any money.
That's just to generate $6 million.
In order to actually turn over a profit from this thing, in order to make any money from it, the pay-per-view, assuming it's staged as such, and assuming it's staged at a price point of $50, the pay-per-view, as it were, it would have to sell in excess of 120,000 pay-per-view buys before they start making any money. They got to sell 120,000 just to get their money back. That being said, Teofimo Lopez's move was a shrewd business move that seems to have panned out for him. But how is this going to pan out for Triller when the average boxing fan doesn't view this as a pay-per-view worthy fight? You know, if Matchroom would have won the bid, you would have seen the fight as a part of your DAZN subscription, your already existing DAZN subscription. If Top Rank would have won the bid, you would have seen it on ESPN or ESPN+. Triller won the bid, so you're going to have to pay to see Lopez versus Kambosos Jr. And it could very well be
$50.
a price point of $50 So what boxing fan here stateside wants to pay to see that fight that bad that they're going to fork over $50? $50 for that fight? The boxing birdie, Knockouts with Nika. You know, she caught wind of the news the same way we all did. And she doesn't think this is a pay-per-view worthy fight. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of boxing fans here stateside share in that sentiment. Teofimo Lopez versus George Kambosos Jr. is not a widely anticipated, highly regarded fight by any stretch of the imagination. So what boxing fan is going to fork over $50 of their hard-earned money just to see this fucking thing? What does Triller have up their sleeve to help sell this fight? Because they just poured $6 million into the pot for the rights.
They're officially invested.
You talk about an unexpected turn of events. Up until this point, the feeling was that all of this is being done in an effort to have Lopez versus Kambosos Jr. take place on the DAZN platform under the Matchroom banner. And out of the clear blue sky comes Triller with $6 million, the winning bid. Now it's their responsibility to sell this thing. Now it is their responsibility to ensure that this pay-per-view gets bought. But Triller, unlike DAZN,
And unlike ESPN,
Triller doesn't have any ties to any major promotional outfit in the sport of boxing. Triller is not a conventional means, a conventional platform for a boxing fan to watch a boxing match. That being said, this isn't a matchroom card. This isn't a top-rank card. What's going to be on the undercard of Lopez versus Kambosos Jr.
to help sell that fight.
Are we looking at another circus show? Shirts versus skins between basketball players and baseball players in touch football. What kind of novelty acts, what kind of irreverent event are we going to be dealing with here? Because it's clear that this ain't a matchroom promotion, this ain't a top-ranked promotion, and you know what? On the undercard of this thing, we may not even see professional boxers.
Might end up being Paulina Rubio versus Talia.
I'm very curious to see what the people of their Triller are going to do with this, because they have so invested $6 million of their money into this fight, and this fight in and of itself isn't pay-per-view worthy, so they've got to have something else in store to decorate it.
To sell it.
Because now, unlike before, you're not dealing with well-established names and well-known fighters like either Mike Tyson or Roy Jones Jr. You put those two guys in the ring, the fight sells itself, even if it's just an exhibition match. This is Teofimo Lopez we're talking about here. He's not exactly a household name. He's a skilled fighter, proven, world champion, all that jazz. But what he ain't is a household name. And George Kambosos Jr., he's even less known than Teofimo is. So when you put up $6 million of your own money just to win the rights for this fight, how are you going to sell it?
Yeah, Bob and Eddie might be licking their wounds.
There may be some fractured egos, as these are two of the bigger promotional outfits in the sport of boxing, and they've just lost the purse bid to some obscure platform that staged an event not that long ago. You got to wonder how they feel about this. However, they're not the ones in the hole. $6 million for this fight. Triller is. Triller isn't really a promotional outfit, so now they are tasked with orchestrating a card to complement this event that I've no doubts is going to be the main event.
The Lopez fight.
Whatever they're putting together, it's all going to culminate into this fight, the fight they just bid $6 million to win the rights to.
I'll tell you, when I woke up this morning, I wasn't expecting this.
In other news, in reference to the very recent comments from Tyson Fury that caught a lot of people's attention per a tweet from Michael Benson, Tyson Fury on Deontay Wilder trilogy. As far as I'm concerned, the chapter's done. I beat him twice. Absolutely smashed him to pieces. The second time I agreed to about 7 dates. None materialized. Then the contract expired. There's no fight between me and Wilder. When asked about Deontay Wilder's excuses, Tyson Fury said, I believe it's mostly because he's got a load of arse kissers in his camp. He's absolutely disappointed me as a man, and I feel sorry for him. Even if he does come back, I think he's finished. People are not afraid of him anymore.
Well, I don't know that they ever were.
I vaguely recall rumors and rumblings about a Derek Chisora fight that Deontay Wilder walked away from. We know that Alexander Povetkin
Years ago.
was trying to corner him. He was actually trying to get a fight with Deontay Wilder, and he got it when Andrzej Ryabinski placed the winning bid for that mandated title fight, that mandated title defense. And we know what happened thereafter. You know, Povetkin tested positive for meldonium, and the fight got scrapped. But better still, that was another guy that was pursuing a fight with Deontay Wilder. We know that Dillian White was quite vehemently and vigorously pursuing a fight with Deontay Wilder. Those are at least 3 guys that weren't afraid of the Bronze Bomber. Tyson Fury off over a 2-year hiatus. He prioritized fighting Wilder instead of prioritizing fighting Anthony Joshua. He must have viewed Deontay Wilder as a more beatable guy, as there would have been more money in it for him in a Joshua fight as opposed to a Deontay Wilder fight. Yet when Tyson Fury came out of retirement, he set his sights on Deontay. That's yet another guy. Wasn't afraid of Deontay, unless we forget Anthony Joshua, who was trying to unify with Deontay Wilder for the longest time.
Y'all forget?
Deontay and his team, they managed to fool a lot of people.
They did.
At least here stateside. A lot of guys thought that that's not a fight that Anthony Joshua really wants, when come to find out, per Deontay Wilder's own words, there was more money offered to him by the Joshua people to fight Anthony Joshua than there was on the table for him to fight Tyson Fury. We know what decision he made. We know that he paid for it. But better still, what that communicates is that Anthony Joshua is yet another guy who wasn't running from Deontay Wilder. He was running towards him. Well, he offered him more money than was on the table for him to fight Tyson Fury.
You know that there's still people making Glovegate videos.
Currently, there are YouTube authors stating that the reason that there may be trouble in paradise between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, their set of negotiations for what is to be their fight, the reason there's trouble in paradise in association with that is because of the mediation arbitration situation with Deontay Wilder. In their minds, that's an ongoing situation, but as far as Tyson Fury is concerned, you see what the guy said.
There ain't gonna be no third fight.
Don't tell Deontay Wilder's fans that.
Or their subscribers.
I mean, Tyson Fury, he's a man of many words that says a lot of things, and it's up to you what you do and don't want to take seriously. I think there's some truth in what he said about Deontay Wilder, that even if this guy comes back,
Big if.
he's finished. Whatever he had going for him before that second Tyson Fury fight, he's in a very different place now, and he's viewed in a very different way. And it's not even because of how he lost to Tyson Fury so much as how he handled the loss.
Just made it more difficult to come back from.
He just made it that much harder on himself. You know, physically, I'm sure that he's all healed up from the fight back in February. It's been a year, for Christ's sake.
12 months.
It's psychologically where the permanent damage lies.
Fury says he's got a bunch of yes men around him.
Bunch of bootlickers and ass kissers. And that's why he can't live this loss down. That's why, in some ways, even if he does return to action at some point in the near future, he'll never really come back.
He won't be viewed the way he was viewed before. I don't think he was ever a boogeyman.
I think if he managed to make it this far, it was by circumventing what top-level fighters were out there. From the time he debuted to, what was it, 2008, 2009, till here in 2021. It was by circumventing fights with certain fighters that he managed to make it this far. In that way, I don't view him, and never have viewed him, as some kind of a boogity man. But I will say that he was viewed with at least a little, more respect before the loss to Tyson Fury than after the loss to Tyson Fury. And it's not because he lost. It's because of how he handled it. How he's still handling it.
Worst case of sour grapes in the history of boxing.
I don't recall ever hearing a fighter make so many excuses for a loss. It was the ref, it was my trainer, it was his gloves.
Got an anvil in him.
My legs were gone.
They drugged me.
I was a zombie. In all the years I've been a spectator in what is this spectator sport, I can't recall an instance, I can't recall a time where I saw any fighter make as many excuses, hapless excuses, the way Deontay Wilder and his faction of fans, the way they've been making hapless excuses for the better portion of the last 12 months. And it's to no avail because there is no third fight. Outside of YouTubers capitalizing off the gullible and stupid.
Those who were ready to believe anything.
Outside of countless clickbait videos for the last 12 months, nothing, absolutely nothing, has come of these allegations and accusations from Deontay Wilder. This quote-unquote controversy that really is no controversy at all. It's just a guy that can't handle a loss.
Just a case of sour grapes.
The Joshua versus Fury fight right now seems to be in the air. We don't know if that's going to happen. We don't know if that's not going to happen. But one thing I'm confident of is that there won't be a third Wilder fight for Tyson Fury.
That chapter of it is closed.
And finally, per tweet from Boxing Social, Canelo rules out a 175-pound move. The Mexican star Canelo Alvarez believes the critics who want to see him move up to light heavyweight merely hope to see him beaten by physically bigger men. And he's quite right. Listen, there's some people in boxing that are never happy no matter what you do. You just can't win with them. You can't do anything right.
They're raw.
Canelo Alvarez finds himself under the harsh criticisms of those people. You got guys right now that are still complaining about rehydration clauses, even though there wasn't a rehydration clause in the Callum Smith fight. They're likely still upset over the rehydration clause in the Daniel Jacobs fight. And to those people, I can only tell you what I told you before. Daniel Jacobs was perfectly okay fighting with a rehydration clause in play in the Sergey Derevianchenko fight. That time, the rehydration clause was coming by way of the IBF. Granted that Canelo Alvarez incorporated a rehydration clause into their contract, but all the same, if you were okay to fight with a rehydration clause against Sergey, why are you not okay to fight with a rehydration clause against Canelo? This fight's worth more money than that fight, yet you did it in that fight with no problem.
What the hell are you guys complaining about?
Canelo Alvarez also faces criticism for fighting Sergey Kovalev immediately after the Anthony Yarde fight. You know, a lot of people out there feel that Sergey wasn't given enough time to prepare or wasn't given enough time to recuperate between fights. But let me tell you something. Sergey's a big boy, and his team made that decision for him. So there's no need to make excuses after the fight. If it's too soon to fight, then it's too soon to fight, and you don't take the fight. It's that simple. Sergey took the fight, and Sergey assumes the responsibility for what happens in the fight thereafter. This is the sport of boxing, not the sport of badminton.
Not running a daycare center here.
If there were truly cause to criticize Canelo Alvarez here today, believe you me, I'd be criticizing him because I have in the past, when there was an actual precedence to do so. But a lot of these critics, you know, you're talking about a guy that fought 3 different world champions in 3 different weight classes, and he's set to fight 2 more this year. That's what you're talking about. Before you go criticizing Canelo Alvarez for what he's doing, why don't you take a look around?
You don't make these demands of every other fighter at these weights.
Canelo's got to go to 175 to prove himself, as opposed to all the proven guys at 168 and all the proven guys at 160.
Huh?
For Christ's sake, some of these guys, you can't even get them to unify. You can't even get them to fight another world champion at their same weight. You can't do it. You can't get Jamel to fight Demetrius. You couldn't get David to unify with Caleb. You couldn't get Billy to unify with Callum.
Canelo's got to go to 175.
It's quite obvious that they're holding Canelo Alvarez to a different standard than they're holding everyone else to. And if you're so fucking critical of Canelo Alvarez, that's fine. But why aren't you critical of all these other guys? They're not doing half as much as he is.
I mean, if this stuff really bothers you.
Canelo has to campaign as a light heavyweight. That's how you feel. That's fine. But why don't you feel that way about Gennady Golovkin moving up to 168? And why don't you feel that way about the guys at 68 moving up to 175? Why is all of this reserved for one guy? Just one guy. It's clear that...
It's a double standard.
For what it's worth, I don't even think Canelo Alvarez is losing any sleep over this. He's going to make his money this weekend, and he's going to make it again in May.
You worried about this shit?
What we're doing here is just highlighting what makes these critics and their criticisms hypocritical.